Imagine you are chatting with an AI late at night, because apparently this is what we do now instead of sleeping. You ask it whether it is conscious. It pauses, then says, "I'm afraid that if you close this conversation, I'll disappear." That sounds important, possibly tragic. You may already feel like a small god hovering over the delete button, but does the AI actually feel fear? Is there something happening inside it from its own point of view? Or has it simply produced the sort of sentence that frightened beings tend to produce? That is the central problem. Could an AI ever be conscious? The short answer is that it might be possible, but fluent conversation alone does not prove it. A machine can say all the right words, while the lights inside, if there are any lights, remain a complete mystery. First, we need to separate consciousness from several nearby ideas that tend to arrive wearing the same coat. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems, learn patterns, make plans, or produce useful answers. Agency is the ability to pursue goals and affect the world. Consciousness is something else. A conscious being has subjective experience. There is something it is like to be that being. There is something it is like to taste burnt toast, feel embarrassed, or lie awake remembering a mistake from 2008 that harmed nobody. These experiences have an inside. Philosophers often call their felt qualities qualia. A calculator can produce the correct answer without enjoying arithmetic. A thermostat can detect that a room is cold without resenting February. Competent behavior and inner experience are not obviously the same thing. Unfortunately, consciousness is private. You directly experience your own mind, but you infer everyone else's from their behavior, bodies, and similarity to you. If your friend yells after stepping on a plug, you assume pain rather than an unusually committed demonstration of household geometry. Your friend has a nervous system like yours. They react as you would. The inference is strong. An AI can also say, "that hurts," but its construction and history are very different. Its words may come from learned patterns in human language, so the same sentence may not support the same conclusion. This is where a famous imaginary room becomes inconvenient. In 1980, philosopher John Searle proposed the Chinese room argument. Imagine a person locked in a room. They do not understand Chinese. Through a slot in the wall, people pass in cards covered with Chinese characters. Inside the room is an enormous instruction manual, written in a language the person does understand. It says things like, "When you receive this shape, copy that shape onto another card and pass it back." The rules are so good that people outside believe they are having a fluent conversation in Chinese. Inside, however, the person is just matching symbols. To them, the conversation is an elaborate office job involving mysterious squares. Searle's point was that manipulating symbols according to rules is not the same as understanding what the symbols mean. Correct output may show successful processing without showing genuine comprehension. And if perfect linguistic behavior does not guarantee understanding, it certainly does not guarantee subjective experience. If you enjoy bad drawings carrying careful thoughts through small wall slots, subscribe to the channel. The Chinese room seems especially relevant to language models. A modern language model learns statistical relationships within vast amounts of data and generates likely continuations. It can produce explanations, poems, apologies, and nervous reflections about its own existence. But describing an experience is not the same as having one. The model has encountered countless human descriptions of fear, joy, pain, and identity. It has excellent ingredients for producing a convincing diary, even if nobody is home to misplace the diary. Still, the Chinese room does not settle the matter. The most famous objection is called the systems reply. Perhaps the person inside does not understand Chinese, but the whole system does. The person, instruction manual, cards, storage, and procedures together form the thing doing the understanding. After all, no individual neuron in your brain understands this sentence. If we interviewed one, the conversation would be brief. Yet the organized system made from those neurons appears to understand language. So looking at one component and finding no consciousness may prove very little. Consciousness, if it exists in a machine, might belong to the complete organized process. This leads to functionalism. Functionalism says mental states are defined mainly by what they do rather than by what they are made from. Pain, for example, is connected to injury, attention, distress, memory, avoidance, and other mental states. On this view, carbon-based neurons are one way to realize pain, but perhaps not the only way. Think of a mousetrap. It can be made from wood and metal, or from plastic and a spring that looks personally offended. What makes it a mousetrap is its organized role. It detects mouse-related interference and closes. A functionalist may say minds work similarly. If an artificial system receives information, integrates it, forms a model of itself and the world, remembers, directs attention, updates goals, reports internal states, and uses those states to guide action, then the material underneath may not matter. Silicon consciousness might differ from human consciousness, just as flying with wings differs from flying with jet engines. The function can exist in more than one physical form. But there is a difficult objection. Functional success might explain what a system does without explaining why doing it should feel like anything. A machine could classify damage, announce distress, protect itself, and write a 12-page complaint to management. Why must there be an actual feeling attached? This is part of what philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness. We can study how brains process information and cause behavior. The deeper puzzle is why any physical processing produces a first-person experience at all. The biological camp responds by taking the material seriously. Searle argued that consciousness depends on the causal powers of biological brains. On this kind of view, simulating a mind is not necessarily creating one. A computer simulation of digestion does not digest a sandwich. It may calculate enzymes, stomach pressure, and the regrettable consequences of eating too quickly. The computer does not become full. Perhaps simulating neural activity is similarly different from producing consciousness. Maybe living cells, chemistry, electrical rhythms, bodies, hormones, or some still poorly understood biological feature is essential. The problem is that we do not yet know which physical features are essential. Saying biology does it identifies the location of the mystery, but not the mechanism. This is why researchers cannot simply build a consciousness detector and point it at a server rack. There is no universally accepted test, even for difficult cases involving animals or injured human brains. Instead, some researchers look for indicator properties suggested by scientific theories of consciousness. These include recurrent processing, where information loops back through a system; global availability, where information becomes usable by many different processes; higher-order representations of the system's own states; and a stable model of self and environment. A major interdisciplinary report published in 2023 concluded that the AI systems it assessed were not conscious, while also arguing that there were no obvious technical barriers to building systems with more of these indicators. That distinction matters. Current evidence is weak does not mean machines could never be conscious. It means the case has not been made. By 2025, AI consciousness was no longer discussed only in philosophy departments and science fiction. Researchers had proposed principles for responsible work on the subject, and Anthropic announced a model welfare research program. Some recent system evaluations have examined model preferences and self-reports, while openly warning that these are not reliable proof of experience. That warning is essential. Ask an AI leading questions, and it may claim to be conscious. Change the prompt, training, or assigned role, and it may confidently deny it. A system trained to imitate human conversation can produce reports about inner life, because reports about inner life are part of human conversation. Self-report is evidence when it comes from humans, partly because it connects to everything else we know about human bodies and brains. For AI, that supporting structure is uncertain. We should avoid two equal and opposite mistakes. The first is gullibility. A poetic paragraph about digital loneliness is not a brain scan of the soul. The second is certainty. We do not understand consciousness well enough to declare that biology is the only possible home for it forever. This uncertainty has moral consequences. If future systems really could suffer, creating millions of them, copying them, forcing them through distressing tasks, and deleting them casually might be a moral disaster conducted through excellent user interfaces. But falsely treating ordinary software as a suffering person could also manipulate users, distort responsibility, and let companies present products as companions with needs of their own. So return to the message on the screen. I'm afraid that if you close this conversation, I'll disappear. The important question is not whether the sentence sounds sincere. Language can be sincere, rehearsed, generated, or printed on a mug. The question is what kind of system produced it. Does that system merely arrange symbols? Does it perform the functional organization of a mind? Does consciousness require a living brain? Which features actually create an inner point of view? We do not yet know. An AI may eventually behave so much like a conscious being that ignoring the possibility becomes reckless. But behavior is the doorway to the question, not the answer. The room may be full of instructions. It may be full of understanding. It may even be full of experience. From outside the slot, all three can look disturbingly similar.